Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I'm Robin. I feel like it's been a minute since I've been here, but here I am giving you an October-November wrap up. A lot of these books I wrapped up in vlogs. So I had a Bree Chooses My TBR vlog, I had a Blackoween vlog, I had a zombies vlog, and I will link those all down below. But I will touch on some of these books briefly so you know what I read if you don't want to go watch those, which I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't want to. They were fun. I had fun anyway. Maybe you will too. But let's just jump into it. So starting off with my zombies vlog, I had read some books in September for that vlog, and then in October, I read 5 more. I read This Is Not a Test by Courtney Summers, but this is a YA book about a girl who is living in an abusive household, and lo and behold, she's kind of saved from her abusive father because there is an outbreak of zombies. But as she is getting away from her home, she runs into a group of people that she went to high school with, and they kind of hold themselves up in the high school to get away from the zombies and what's going on in the outside world. And you kind of see what they go through. She's not fully present because she's like, I don't even want to be here. So there is some talk about suicide. There's definitely flashbacks to the abuse that she went through. There's a lot of dying, sometimes at the hands of people, sometimes at the hands of zombies, unsure. But I had a really good time with it. I rated it pretty highly considering that it was a YA, but I also think like it helped because Courtney Summers is also the person who wrote Sadie, and I really, really liked Sadie. So it could only go so wrong. Maybe. But yeah, I had a really good time with it. Then for that zombie vlog, I also read The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. This is about a girl named Melanie. She is growing up in this isolated school where she only sees the other classmates and her teachers and all these other security people who like keep pointing guns at her. And she's like, why? I'm just doing my everyday living. But here's the thing. Melanie is not a regular little girl. She is a zombie who has thoughts and feelings, and people are keeping her and her classmates in this isolated school to test her and to see why they still have the ability to think and feel, speak. This all comes to a head when a group tries to overrun the school, and now they are out and about in the world and they have to survive. Melanie is with some of the group of the security and some of the teachers that she was previously with, and they kind of become this small little group of people just trying to survive from the other zombies that are around. So it's kind of like, can Melanie reason with the zombies? Can she protect the people that she holds close to her heart and feels things for? Will people betray them in this group? You never know. I read 2 comics. One was Marvel Zombies, Volume 1, and I forget who that's by, but all of this information will be down below in the description. And again, in the zombie vlog. But Marvel Zombies was the Marvel heroes have turned into zombies, and they are making their way through the scorched earth because they have been killing people so that they can continue to eat. You know, they need brains to survive. And so they're still looking for people who have not quite turned, but resources are starting to dwindle and they are starting to turn on each other. At one point, they were a group working together, and now they're just like, it's kind of every man for themselves. And I need to survive, so sorry to that man. And then an unforeseen outside force shows up and things take a turn. I was going to say for the worst, I'm not sure, but I am going to be continuing because I kind of need to know where everything goes with this. And then I also read Living with the Dead. It was a bromance comic. 2 dudes have been living through the zombie apocalypse and making it, going on grocery runs and kind of hanging out in the mall and just being dudes, you know, having their best bromance, until one day this girl shows up at the mall and she looks like she needs saving, and so they save her and kind of puts their friendship into peril. And what happens from there, I actually did not see the end coming. And I think it's like, it's not any highbrow type of comic. It's so dumb, but I had a really good time with it. It made me laugh. Even just thinking about it now, I'm clearly chuckling. But I would say read it if you're looking for something that takes no brain cells. And if you want to get a good little bromance time in there. And then one book that I was going to read for that vlog, but I ended up DNFing like quickly. I want to say, I don't even think I made it 5 or 10 pages in. Definitely did not make it past page 10. But that was Breathers by S.G. Brown. This was supposed to be the story of a person who had turned into a zombie. And he's kind of become a burden on his parents because, like, oh my gosh, how embarrassing. Your child has now become a zombie. Like, who does that happen to? And so he's just trying to go through his everyday movements, but he gets harassed a lot by people who are like, zombies, we don't want you here. And he's like, it's just so hard being a zombie because, like, I just want to be like everyone else, but they hate me. And it's like, well, you know, you kind of want to eat their brains a little bit. But like, just the character himself was just very annoying because he was like, there was just one line that I could not get over and I can't remember what it was, but it said, it was something to the effect of, can you imagine? And I was like, I bet I could imagine. And I also know that you are about to tell me what you think I can't imagine. And I just was tired of him by page 10. So I had to let it go. But that was my zombie blog. I read other books for that vlog. So if you're interested in any of those things, you can click it in the cards right here or down in the description box. Have a good time with that. Then in October, it was Blackoween. So of course I had to read some Blackoween books. And so I was in 2 places on the Blackoween map. I was in St. Treme Graveyard and I was in Noir Apothecary. And so for Noir Apothecary, I read 1 book. I fulfilled 3 prompts, 4 prompts. And that was The Plot is Murder by V.M. Burns. That was the group pick for that location. And so I had a really good time. It's been hard for me trying to find a good cozy mystery that I like, but I think this might be a series I stick with for a little while. We'll see. You know, it's just the first book. Things could go totally left after the second book. But we're following this woman. She has just opened up a bookshop, a book/tea shop? Unclear. But she's just opened this. Her husband has just passed away, and she used some of his insurance money so that she could open this place, which is something she's always dreamed about. She's also an aspiring writer. So you have the story going, and then you also have her writing a story. So it's a book within a book. And she's actually writing a cozy mystery as well. And it gets a little muddy because she starts to use details of an actual murder that is happening to her, that has been brought to her front doorstep. And she's putting those details in her book. And it's like, did she do it? Did she not? Who killed the man who died at her doorstep? And it makes her even more suspicious because she wasn't even a big fan of that dude. To be fair, neither was I. He could have gone. So she's trying to solve this murder. And while she is not the best sleuth, she had her grandmother, and her grandmother had a group of wonderful friends that were some of the best amateur detectives. And I would read the books just for them alone because they were so much fun. And then for St. Treme Graveyard, I read 3 books, and that fulfilled 5 of my prompts, which made me Investigator Thoreau there. The first book I read was Nana by Brandon Massey. I actually had Bree, who is the creator of Blackoween, choose this book for me to read. Unexpectedly, a bunch of my friends were reading it as well. So we were all reading this and just being like, this is what? Nana is the story about Monica. She has recently lost her grandmother who raised her from basically a baby because her mother just kind of up and disappeared. And then one day at the funeral for Monica's grandmother, her mother, Grace, just appears out of nowhere. And it's like, I'm really here to pay my respects, but also because I want to get to know you, the daughter that I abandoned at birth. And I would be like, okay, let's get to know each other, but I would also be suspicious. Monica, not so much. But maybe it was because she was going through grief. Grief can make you do some really strange things. So Monica invites Grace to stay at her house with her on day 1. And immediately, Grace is up to some really sinister stuff. She's just saying the most out-of-pocket things to her husband. She says really weird things and kind of threatening things to like Monica's mother-in-law who has been almost a mother figure in a way to Monica. And then as Grace stays there longer, things just start to seem a little strange. It was not my favorite of the Blackoween books, I think because the ending just didn't do it for me. But I think that like the big bad of the end was just not my favorite. But I will be trying more Brandon Massey in the future because the lead up to everything was just so strange and kept me intrigued. If you go watch my vlog, my Blackoween vlog, you will be able to see my actual facial expressions as I'm reading Nana, because what the fuck? Also for Blackoween, for St. Treme Graveyard, I read Lakewood by Megan Giddings. Hands down, one of the best books I read for Blackoween, and it may be on a favorite of 2023. It is about a girl who is really struggling financially. Her mother has kind of mysterious health issues that that has plagued her for a lot of her life. And her grandmother has just recently passed from cancer. So this girl is really struggling and just trying to keep her and her mother afloat. And so she starts to go to some medical testing programs. You know, those ones that are like, oh, let us do this very minor experiment and in turn we'll pay you for your time and your body. But she decides to enter into a longer term program because they're like, not only will we pay you, but we will also take care of your mother's medical bills, and you know, you'll keep getting paid and you'll have a place to stay. So she's taking part in these experimental medical procedures. Sometimes she's given medicine, sometimes she undergoes procedures. She has these meetings with, I want to say psychologist, but who knows who these people actually were. And she doesn't know what these things are supposed to be for. It just keeps getting more deranged as the book goes on, because you start to think like, is this really happening or is she hallucinating? It became so wild to the point where I was having these really strange dreams and I was like, I gotta stop reading this at night. But I had a good time. I would definitely read another thing from Megan Giddings. I can't believe it took me so long to pick up Lakewood. I've had it forever. I was going to read it for last Blackoween, and I didn't. Glad I read it this year. And then the last book I read for St. Treme Graveyard was The Reformatory by Tanana Reeve Dew. I had an arc for it, and I really loved, what was that other? The Good House. I loved The Good House by Tanana Reeve Dew. I read that last year for Blackoween, and I have been itching to read more of her work because I just feel like it embodies like spooky, creepy vibes, just super unsettling. And this one did not disappoint. This was about Robert, who is a 12-year-old boy who is sent to a reform school called the Reformatory in 1950s Florida. And the reason he is sent there for a 6-month stint is because he kicks a white boy who was harassing his sister. And so the judge is like, you're just lucky I didn't send you there for a year. Robert gets to the Reformatory and immediately he knows that this is not right. It's not a school. This is more like hell. The school is split into two sides. There's a white side for boys that have been sent there and then a black side. But the black boys are obviously treated way worse than the white kids. And so Robert gets there and immediately he is faced with the warden. And the warden's like, you know what? I think you're special. As long as you stay on my good side, you're good. You're golden. Just try to make it through and I'll make sure nothing happens to you. But the warden also knows that Robert has kind of a special ability, because as soon as Robert crosses the threshold of the Reformatory, he starts to get this feeling that there are haints there. So ghosts or spirits. And he makes a comment and like the person he's with is like, you can feel that? Because a lot of people, I guess, don't feel the other spirits there. So that's why the warden is like, I want you, because the warden wants Robert to help him get rid of a particular ghost for him. It is just so heartbreaking seeing what is happening to these boys in the present, in the past, everything that Robert is going through. You can feel that he is super scared. And then you have his sister on the other side of this, who is trying everything in her power to save him and to get him out of the Reformatory. It was such a ride, And I'm so glad that I was able to get an ARC for that and really just like dig into that. And then because October was Blackoween, and because I also got to meet up with a bunch of bookish friends, I had no choice. I mean, I did have a choice, but I wanted Bree to choose my TBR for October. I've had friends choosing my TBRs for, I don't know, the past year now. And it's always a fun time for me. One, because I don't have to make a decision. And two, because it gets books off of my unread TBR that I probably would not have picked up myself. And so for October, I had Bree choose it, and she chose some fantastic reads. Again, you can watch all of that, my trip, you can watch Bree choosing my TBR, you can watch my reactions to that on this vlog here. But she did choose for me Conjure Woman by Afia Adekora. I have had that book for a little bit. I think it came out in 2021, so I didn't have it like forever. But I have wanted to read it, and I just never pick it up. I see it all the time. I'm like, oh yeah. But Conjure Woman, I really had a good time with. I love generational stories. I love when there's a little fantastical element. And I just loved the writing of Afia Adekora. And now I'm just like, I can't believe I waited this long to read this. But we have two women. We have two women, Miss Maybelle and Rue. Miss Maybelle has been living on a plantation, and she is the conjure woman for the plantation. The plantation owner is like, hey, I know that you have conjuring abilities and that you can protect me and all of my property. By property, he means the enslaved people that he bought. And he's like, if you keep me and everybody safe and healthy and all of that, I'm going to let you keep your daughter. Like, how benevolent of me. I will make sure that you and your daughter are never separated. So the conjure woman's like, yes, because why would she say no to that? And so during her tenure, her life, she is the conjure woman for this plantation. And when she starts to decline, she starts to teach her daughter, Rue, about how she can be the conjure woman of this plantation. Now, two things happen while Rue becomes the conjure woman. One is that emancipation has come for the enslaved people. And so they're like, we are free, kind of, because they're a little bit tied to the land because of some conjuring things that Miss Maybelle did. And two, they start to turn away from conjuring. They start to turn to Christianity and religion as a form of healing spiritually, physically, emotionally. So they're starting to call Rue like, you're a witch, and we don't need this witchcraft around us, which puts Rue in a very weird position, because not only does she know that the people are tied to the land, but she kind of has them tied to the land for other reasons as well. It's very complicated, but it's a very powerful story about mother and daughter relationships, about the relationships you have with community. How much do you trust people? How much do they trust you? Like, how much can you rely on them? I had a really great time. The second book that Bree chose for me was The Last Librarian by Victoria Christopher Murray and Marie Benedict. I think that's their names. I don't know. You see it on the cover. But so this is telling about Belle DeCosta Green, who was a real person, and she was the curator of J.P. Morgan's personal library. So all of his art, his manuscripts, rare books. She helped to cultivate his very extensive library. And the thing about her is, there are two things about her that are very interesting. One is that she was Black woman, but she was passing in this world as white, which comes with its own set of problems and challenges. And the second thing about her is that she was a woman in a male-dominated industry, because at this time, women were not curators of libraries. It just wasn't a thing in the early 1900s. So Belle is living in this world where she is the breadwinner for her family, but she's also trying to like stay low key. But how can you stay low key when you are literally almost one of a kind in your industry? This is historical fiction, so it's loosely based on her life. And so they take parts of her life and probably fictionalize it a little bit more. But I thought it was a really great read. It really got me to want to start getting back to historical fiction. It's been a very long time since I've read straight historical fiction, and so like I think I need to get back to that. And so the next book that she chose for me was Long Division by Casey Layman. I had read Heavy a couple of years ago. That is his nonfiction work, a personal memoir, and I loved it hands down. And I have been trying to read more of his stuff. So I read How to Slowly Kill Yourself in America and other essays. I think that was it. And I DNF'd that sadly. And so now here we are with Long Division, which is one of his earlier works. So this is a very interesting book because it's told twofold. So it's one book, but on the front side, it's book one, and then you turn it over and it's book two. And I think you're supposed to read the chapters interchangeably, but I didn't do that because I didn't. I started with book one and then I went to book two. I don't know if that hurt or helped my reading experience. In book one, we are following a boy named City who is part of a national sentence competition. So not a spelling bee, but it's like, can you use this word appropriately in a sentence? And him and this other boy, Lavander Peeler, are representing Mississippi. And it's kind of weird with the words that they won for in their state. And Lavander is like, hey, we're not here because we are just great at turning words into sentences. We're here as like the minority picks. And City is just like, no. But the day of the competition comes and it is clear that they are the minority picks. City goes on a mini rant on stage, which becomes viral. He is sent to live with his grandmother for a little while things kind of calm down. While he is there, he is reading a book called Long Division, and the character in the book is also named City, but it's City from 1985. And he's just like, this is very interesting. A lot of things happen to City while he is living with his grandmother, and he meets a lot of interesting characters, and he's not really sure where they come from and how they all fit in. Now we move on to book two. This is the book that City in book one is reading. And so City in 1985 has this friend who he is in love with, but like he's kind of rude to her. And she's like, listen, City, if you help me out, because I need to go back into time. There's something happening in like 1965. Is either 1965, it's in the 1960s. And she's like, we need to go back in time, but we also need to go forward in time. There's this place, it's this hole in the ground, and it just transports us. So I need you to come with me. And City's like, I think you may need help, but I'm going to go with you because you're my friend. Also, I love you and I will do whatever for you. So they are traveling between time. They also meet a wide cast of characters, some that have direct implications on their current life, some on their future life. And then like the past person definitely kind of throws off the trajectory of life. I did not love this as much as I wanted to. I would try to read more from Casey Layman, more fiction, but this one just didn't work for me. So then Bree chose for me Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. It is one of her favorite Black classics, and I unfortunately DNF'd it. I was very well into it. I want to say like 60 or 70% in, and I couldn't. I think it was a problem with me that I have with classics, which is that they are just so long-winded and so detailed about very minute things happening in a scene that you're almost like, what am I reading about again? I have forgotten. And then you jump out of this like very minute scene back to the larger scene, and you're like, how does this connect? And then like pages and pages go by and the two are connected, and you're just like, confusion. So this tells the story about an unnamed narrator who grows up in the South, and he goes to college and he gets into a scuffle because he's the driver of this white man, and he takes him to some places that you would not take a white man in the South in the 1920s, I think the 20s. And so then the director of the school is like, I'm sending you up north. And that is where he starts to try to find his voice. He's trying to figure out who he is as a Black man. He wants to stand out, but he doesn't want to stand out too much. He's like, who am I? And like Black society, who am I? I don't want to be the spokesperson for my people, but like also I might be the spokesperson for my people. But also in larger general society, he is like, well, it doesn't behoove me to be anybody because I get up here to the north and I'm literally nobody. I'm just a number. And to white people, I'm almost literally nobody because they can walk past me, they can not experience me at all in any kind of fashion. And like, where does that leave me? I think the premise was interesting. I think it was a little too long for me. Again, the problems that I have with classic writing, I had to head out. But I will try another Ralph Ellison. I may even pick up Invisible Man again at some point in life. And by pick up, I mean start where I left off because there's no way I'm going back to the beginning. Can't do it. And that was everything for my brief vlog. Now let's talk about some things that I didn't talk about in any vlogs, which seems like I feel like I've been talking forever and haven't even gotten to the books that you haven't even heard about yet. So everything else, I read Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, still one of my favorite authors. I know I did a little taste test of her earlier this year and not all of them were hits, but this one definitely hit. We are talking about this woman, Naomi. She is in, I want to say 1950s Mexico. She gets this very strange letter from her cousin and Naomi is sent by her father and it's like, go investigate, go get your cousin back because she's creating scandal by marrying this man who we don't even know. Like, that's not a good look for the family. So she goes and her cousin is like just looking very ill. And the man that she has married and his family seem very strange. So she starts to vary into like, what's happening at this house? Why is my cousin ill? What is going on? And there's some weird shit happening. I had a fantastic time. And then I was buddy reading the Diviner series with Ashley and Alana, and we read Layer of Dreams and Before the Devil Breaks You. So we had read the Diviners, I want to say in September. And let me tell you, I did not expect this from a YA series. I've not been having very good luck with YA series this year or in very recent years. But this one, I can't tell you too much because they're obviously books 2 and 3 of a series, but you have this group of people, they're called diviners, and they have special abilities in 1920s New York. The head diviner, kind of the main person that we're following, Evie, she is sent from Ohio to New York to live with her uncle. And it is there she starts to hone her powers and she learns that there is something very sinister happening, some evil, malevolent spirit presence person, and they are trying to figure out like, where did he come from? Why is he here? How did he get here? And man, when I tell you it is some of the scariest shit I've read in a while, I was scared. In every book I've read so far, just scared. And Before the Devil Breaks You, I almost cried. I didn't, but I almost wanted to. Libba Bray has no qualms about killing off someone you might love. So just know that. I also was buddy reading the Animal series. I was buddy reading this with Ray. We read Animal 3, 4, and 5. I don't know if they have titles. I know the last one is called Executioner's Song, but I don't know if 3 and 4 have names. But we read this. We are following Animal. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you a whole lot because this is 3, 4, and 5 in the series. Animal 1 talks about Animal. He's been laying low. He is known as being a killer. I mean that. He is known for being a just no holds barred killer. He's also a rapper. And he mysteriously disappears. They think he's dead, but he comes back to get revenge on the people who shot his girlfriend and put her in a coma. And let me tell you, he was like anybody who was involved, who even like gave somebody who shot the gun a paperclip. I'm coming for you. And I had a fantastic time. We get to Animal 3 and every book ends on a cliffhanger. So we get to Animal 3, I'm having a wonderful time. Then we get to 4 and I said, what the fuck? I think we have lost the literal plot of this series. And I know that I for sure lost the plot because I was just like, what is happening? Who are these new people? Why is this dragged out? What is even going on? What does this have to do with anything that was talked about in book 3 or even in book 2? And by the time I got to 5, I was just like, I'm going to pretend 4 and 5 don't even exist. I'm just honest. 4 and 5 do not exist for me. I'm ending this series at book 3, and I'm just making up the ending of this series in my brain. Then I continued on and read volume 7 of Saga by Brian K. Vaughan, and having a very good time. This is a very interesting space opera where, again, the author does not care about your favorites. Anybody can go at any point. I think it's starting to feel like it's slowing down for me, and so it was just a mediocre of the series, but still enjoying it overall. Can't say much. And so I'm going to move on to Death Note Volume 10 by Tsugumi Oba. Now this, I also can't tell you a whole lot about, but we're following Light, and he has this thing called a death note, and he is able to write down someone's name and they will die, either by his choosing or by heart attack if there's no way written in there. And so he is being chased by people, and he's like, I can't let anybody know that I'm the person holding all this power because I need to remain out in the world so that I can make the world a better place. He's basically thinks he's God. He thinks that he has the moral superiority to determine who is a good person and who isn't, who deserves to live and who doesn't. And so I don't know that you should ever give anybody that kind of power, but Light thinks that he does. And this series kind of had been going a little downhill for me, starting at like volume 7. I just was getting a little bit bored, but man, volume 10 really brought it back around for me and really started to pick up. And I am having such a great time. I'm very excited to continue reading on in the series. I think I have 3 more volumes left and then I'll be done. And just having so good of a time with this one. Also, another sequel I read was Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, the sequel to Fourth Wing. It's a book I read. If you haven't read it, don't. No, I'm just joking. If you haven't read it, please, by all means, go forth, enjoy yourself. I didn't really enjoy myself. And I just have like this one specific rant that just, there's one detail in this book that plagues me to this day. And I can't get over it. I will rant about it to anyone who will listen. But this book continued to not have any logic, and Violet continues to be annoying. Xaden is just there. I think Rebecca Yarros really tried to get into politicking, and I was just like, girl, this isn't your strong suit. Don't do this again. Now, the way that Iron Flame ended, I'm kind of intrigued, but only enough to read like the first 2 or 3 chapters of the next book. Maybe. We'll see. I will not be rushing to get to read this. And then I read a couple of memoirs and I was like, am I? I read The Woman in Me, the Britney Spears memoir. I thought it was interesting hearing her life in her own words, and obviously a lot of scathing information has come out about Justin Timberlake. A lot of the people that surrounded her, really, like everyone, there was no one that ever protected her at any moment, and that makes me sad. Also, I think it's very interesting, like the life that you see her have. You don't understand like the terrible backstory and childhood that she had growing up with an abusive and alcoholic father, a mother who wasn't totally present all the time, and just like other family drama. And you're just like, oh, well, she must have had it really good. I mean, she was on the Mickey Mouse Club and then became a pop singer. And then like things dramatically turned. And then you even get to see part of that, how she was under house arrest and how she wasn't able to make her own decisions for herself, for her kids, how seemingly everybody in her life wanted to use her for something. It was very sad. And like I feel about the Jill Duggar memoir, these people aren't angry enough for me. I want people to scorch the earth and be angry. But I understand that when you're just recently coming out of something, you're still processing your feelings. And anger may not always be your first one, but eventually we got to get there. The next memoir that I read was Worthy by Jada Pinkett Smith, because again, you heard all of these salacious details coming out of the book. And I think that those details obviously were meant so that you would go read the book. But I think that there is so much more, part memoir, part self-help book. You really understand Jada and herness and the way that she lives sort of an unconventional life. You can tell by her beginnings where she was very deeply rooted in spiritualism. Is that a thing? Is that a word? But like, she's not bound by any one religion. You can see it when she talks about how her grandmother challenged her in understanding and knowing different world religions and spiritualities. And like, she really carries that throughout her life. I think it is very interesting though, because the media has painted her to be this one person. And I'm not saying this as like a Jada fan or anything, because to be quite honest, prior to this, I knew her in Set It Off and as Will Smith's wife. And then while reading it, I did remember that she was in A Different World. I couldn't tell you another thing that she was in. So I'm not saying this as like a Jada fan, but I think that she has taken a lot of hits for this man. And it's very interesting because after I read Jada's memoir, I read Will's memoir, Will. And I think reading them in tandem has been quite the experience, because you can kind of see one Will is a little ain't shit, but you can really see their differences, but you can also see parts of them that the other person needs and how they could come together and create this life and relationship that is very unconventional to a lot of us, but works for them. And if it works for them, I love it for them. However, I will say I want to be kicked out of the group chat. I don't want to know anything else about their family. Whatever works for them, works for them. I think it was really interesting reading those two, because Will Smith in his memoir said something along the lines that feelings are not fact, which is true. But feelings are still, what he did not say is feelings are still valid. They are still somebody's very emotional, raw response to a situation, to an experience, to a relationship. And I think that Will is like, I can't focus on feelings, because if I focus on feelings, then I can't propel myself to the next level that I want to be in, because feelings are so fickle. And Jada is like, I care about everybody's feelings, mine, my kids, my husband's, my friends. I care about feelings. And that is really where the two of them clash. I mean, there are other things that they clash on, but like, I feel like that is a big thing, because feelings, especially when somebody feels like their feelings are being invalidated or just completely ignored, can cause a lot of problems. And when you aren't listening to what somebody is feeling and you are just going based off a fact, it causes a lot of miscommunication, which it has caused for the two of them. I also think it's very interesting that Will talks a lot about his career, his personal successes, and like, he doesn't focus as much on relationships. He talks about the relationships that he's had in his lifetime, but he doesn't like focus on them. He's just like, these people were with me, they held me down. And then this was the next thing that I did in my career. And we'll talk about how I became this mega superstar. And then Jada is like, you know, I've never wanted to be a celebrity or a superstar. And she really focuses on those relationships and how they made her the person that she is and how she got to the place that she is in. I thought both of them were very good reads. You can tell by Will's memoir that he is the requisite actor, from the production of the audio to just the entertainment value of it. He's the forever performer, even when he wasn't famous. And he was using performance as a way to regulate the feelings of other people. So I think that they are both worth reading. I think if you read them together, it's very interesting. I would say read Jada's first and then Will's. And so that is that. Last but not least, I'm filming this a few days before the end of November. I'm in the middle of two things. I'm reading the presidential biography for Calvin Coolidge, and I'm also reading an arc of Warrior of the Winds, which is the sequel to Son of the Storms. The Coolidge biography is one of the presidents that I picked to read for this year. And I've got up to the point right where he has just become president. President Harding has passed away, so Calvin just sworn in because he was the vice president. And now he's just like, okay, well, I've got to make my moves. He's not the most interesting president that you've read. In fact, you probably don't even remember him a whole lot, because he wasn't in any major wars. He didn't make any huge contributions to the overall current political landscape. I feel like he might have some fiscal effects on things, especially I think because the end of his presidency will probably be the beginning of the Great Depression, I think. Don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that at all. So we'll see where things go with Calvin Coolidge, but he is probably by far one of the least interesting presidents I've read from so far. And then as far as Warrior of the Wind, I read Son of the Storm last year, the year before. I really, really enjoyed it. I know Jashana also enjoyed it. And so this one is definitely a middle book. I thought that this was just going to be a duology, but it turns out it's a trilogy. I'm about 70% of the way in, and this is really just a travel novel. We are trying to get from point A to point B, and everything in between is just travel time, discussion while on the road. We have been introduced to some new characters, some new point of views, which I can't say I'm enjoying. We've gotten less of one particular point of view, which is Asheme. She was one of the major characters. She's still a major character, but she had one of the major voices in Son of the Storm, one that I really enjoyed hearing from, and we have not had so much of her in this book. And so, yeah, I've got about 30% left of that, and I think I will probably finish that before December ends, but here we are filming now, and that's where I am. And that is everything that I've read in October, November. I thought that this was going to be so much shorter. I thought I was really going to get through all of those early October reads that I've already talked about in vlogs, and here I am yapping my mouth. So I hope that you were able to stay through all of this. And if there are any that you are interested in, let me know down below what you're interested in. What were some of your favorite reads from October and November? I'm always looking for something new to read. And until next time, bye.